Rafe Milburn was a biologist who travelled aboard the USCSS Prometheus on his voyage in search of the origin of humanity and possible extraterrestrial life on the moon LV-223. Milburn was a rather eccentric personality which could lead him to interact inappropriately around the wrong company. Notable examples are messing with the Prometheus's equivalent of Oscar the Grouch, as well as the delightful native wildlife of LV-223. Milburn was born in the year 2050 on Earth, and the Prometheus expedition was actually one of the first field expeditions for Milburn. As previously stated, he really only worked in a laboratory and was very unexperienced in how to conduct himself in the field. However, his ability and interest and skill in phylogenetics and the stuff of evolutionary relationships between species gained him a place aboard the vessel, no matter his lack of field experience. Sean Fifield was a geologist who was part of the crew of the USCSS Prometheus, sent to search for the origins of mankind on LV-223 alongside Milburn, who he formed a begrudging friendship with. Fifield was born in 2050 on Earth and was actually never supposed to be a part of Project Prometheus. Now, instead, there was a geologist named E.J. Eager under serial number SG6257. However, due to some unknown circumstance, that person could not take part on the expedition, so Fifield was chosen instead and hired by Meredith Vickers just 4 days before launch towards LV-223. Vickers hired him even despite his terrible score, his mental and psychological cognitive evaluations provided by the company, with him being described by his previous co-workers as very difficult and abrasive. This caused many clashes with his fellow workers and soon-to-be crew. It made him somewhat of an outcast, and it presented great troubles in stressful situations. Regardless of his personal hostility, he also seemed to have a cowardly side, shown a few times through the progression of the mission, with him immediately becoming highly distressed and unreasonable at the first sight of the engineer corpse, which led him to aggressively, verbally attack a passive Elizabeth Shaw when questioning her plans of investigating giant dead bodies, whilst inside the temples of LV-223. Sean Fifield was the sole licensed operator of the PUPS technology used to map large-scale geological structures such as the temples. Both Milburn and Fifield were hired by Wayland Industries to take part in the expedition to the distant moon LV-223 aboard the Prometheus, and after spending 2 years in hypersleep, Milburn, along with the other crew members and Fifield, were awakened. While the crew members were having breakfast, Milburn and Fifield eventually meet, and Milburn offers friendship to him, only to be coldly rejected by the latter, in a cynical and cold fashion. As the Prometheus arrived above LV-223, the crew were debriefed on their mission by Vickers, Shaw and Holloway about the agenda to discover the engineers. Once the Prometheus lands on LV-223, the team consisting of Shaw, Holloway, David, Ford, Jackson, Fifield and Milburn themselves quickly begin to explore the large artificial structure nearby, which they assume to be some kind of temple. Whilst exploring inside the temple, the team came across some kind of water-related terraforming system that made the air within the temple breathable. As the team moved deeper within the tunnels, Fifield activated his PUPS technology in order to analyze and virtually map the entire temple, which would be recorded and sent back to be displayed and stored in the Prometheus's data storage system and displayed for the bridge to analyze. As the team made it deeper into the temple, David activates the temple's hologram, with what followed was the team following a hologram of engineers, which eventually led them to finding a corpse of an engineer, and this was the endpoint for Fifield and Milburn, as Fifield began to panic and lose his temper with the others of his team.
I'm just a geologist. I like rocks. I love rocks.
He and Milburn eventually decided to flee further into the Engineer Temple in an attempt to find their way back to the ship. After a short amount of time of trying to find their way out, they lose contact with the Prometheus and with the away team. Eventually, they do get their comms back, and it is revealed that the away team had been evacuated from the temple because of a massive storm that had rolled in, and whilst talking to Captain Yannick, he informs them that they will have to sit there and keep themselves warm until the morning, when the crew could come back and pick them up, as the rapidly developing windstorm of silica would make it currently impossible to do so. Fifield and Milburn, now with no choice, had to hunker down and wait out the night in a place they desperately wanted to get away from. Whilst inside the temple, they came across dozens of engineer remains, which causes the two to stress out and head back towards the headroom where they had last seen the rest of the crew and where they had broken off from the original group. In order to release some built-up tension, Fifield had previously filled his suit's respirator with marijuana, simply because vapors hadn't died yet, even in the 22nd century. Milburn takes amusement to this, and the two are seen to finally be forming some kind of at least shaky friendship, driven by the undesirable circumstances and their actual strange similarities to each other. Soon though, the situation goes from undesirable to dangerous as the two make contact with a potentially dangerous hostile organism. In the moment, the creature known as the Hammerpede makes itself known to the two explorers, and really, at the first, the Hammerpede appears to just be curious and not at all a threat. However, Milburn becomes ecstatic at the fact that he is standing in a room with one of the first ever encountered complex alien life species. Milburn has made first contact. Soon after the two creatures make themselves known, Milburn, with his complete lack of experience in the field and substantially growing fascination with the Hammerpede creature, decides to go in for a closer look, whilst Fifield becomes weary and backs off a little. Soon after Milburn's approach, the Hammerpede opens its head and flares two pedal-like appendages from either side of its body and begins to hiss, an indication that it does not want to be disturbed and it is time to back off. Now, Milburn, even though he was a distinguished biologist, was entranced by the creature and failed to understand the gravity of the situation and that the creature obviously wanted to be left alone. So Milburn continued his advance on the creature, which led to his most fatal mistake. The Hammerpede eventually latched onto his arm and wrapped itself around like a coiled snake. When Fifield attempted to loosen its grip, it only grew tighter. Eventually, with a shocking move, the Hammerpede completely snaps Milburn's arm in half with its immense strength. Milburn lets out a pained scream as Fifield rushes to break him free of the creature's grasp. Fifield eventually resorts to cutting the creature off Milburn, however this is to no avail, as the creature's head grew back in mere seconds, as well as it being revealed that the creature possessed acidic blood, which sprayed onto Fifield and Milburn's suits. The acidic sprayed onto Fifield quickly eats through his faceplate of his helmet, melting the polymer material to his face and causing him to feel a massive burning pain, followed by heavy suffocation, as the material began to block his airways. As he slowly flailed and started to lose consciousness, he dropped to the ground and landed in a puddle of the black pathogen liquid. As this happened, Milburn continued to scream and wrench in pain, as just enough of the acid was able to burn a hole in his suit arm that the Hammerpede was able to breach and gain access to Milburn's body. As the creature slithered into his helmet, there was nothing Milburn could do. Everything had happened so fast and in such speed unmatched, leaving no time to logically think about what to do or develop a well thought out way to stop the creature's advance. Milburn watched as the creature slowly began to circle his head as it waited for him to let out a final scream. The creature shot its head down Milburn's throat, slowly suffocating him. Later the following day, the Prometheus crew returned to find Fifield and Milburn's bodies, and only find the corpse of Milburn, which still had the Hammerpede living inside it, with Fifield seemingly vanished. At a much later stage during the mission, his camera appears outside the Prometheus ship, and some of the maintenance crew go to investigate, with a seemingly incapacitated Fifield waiting for them. One of the crew kicked the body, and they tried to make sense of what they were seeing. However, whilst they have their back turned only for a brief second, it is revealed that Fifield has mutated horrifically into a sinister and violent organism. These mutations, fueled by the black pathogen that he had fallen into, allowed him to survive and become something far less than human. A brute, a killing machine. Fifield stood up and began to slaughter several crew members located in the ship's cargo bay. His transformation allowed him to survive being run over and shot in the head multiple times. However, he was eventually incinerated by a flamethrower, followed by multiple shotgun hits and crushed by an RT series group transport. Today I wanted to give a quick shout out to a fellow member of the alien community named Ambrosia, who runs the Jahavi Woodworking Etsy store. On this store you can purchase a number of beautiful wooden custom laser engraved items across a wide range, including such things as ornaments, rulers, custom storage boxes and so much more, with an almost unlimited number of custom items he can have engraved and sent to you. Ambrosia actually is a patron of Project ACHERON and helps to provide you fellow patrons with engraved items that get rewarded to the higher tiers. So please go and check out Jahavi Woodworking Custom Laser Engravings over at the link on screen and in the description. Before I go, I just wanted to let you guys know about the merch store called ACHERON's Colonial Marketplace. Here you can pick up a variety of ACHERON and alien themed merch from 3 distinct product lines, including shirts, hoodies, mugs, blankets, stickers, bags, and even phone cases. So if you want to support the channel and look good doing it, pick up some ACHERON merch. But what other videos would you guys like to see? If you have any ideas or have any questions you would like answered, please meet me down in the comments. If you did enjoy the video, please leave a like and go check out Project ACHERON on Twitter and Discord. If you want to support me further, you can become a patron where you can get access to early and behind the scenes content, the monthly and Alien Day giveaways, as well as the patron only engraved set of items. I hope you guys did enjoy the video, and I'll talk to you guys in the next one. Until then, this is Project ACHERON, signing off.